Smell that, ladies and gents. We've got the Hall of Fame game tonight, and Oklahoma is on the practice field as of Thursday. That means that for us, at least, football is back a little under a month, a day under a month until it's back. We'll dive into it all. We talked about, or talked to Brent Venables, Ben Arbuckle, a bunch of players, all that stuff. That's coming at you here on the Sooners on SI podcast. I am Ryan Chapman. We got our man John Hoover back in Broken Arrow, 918 Hoov. How you doing?
What's up, fellas?
Enjoying life. Got Carson, our guy Carson Field in Norman. Carson, you ready to sweat it out tomorrow and next week as we step back out onto the practice field for the vaunted viewing sessions?
I am so ready for anything football related at this point. Tomorrow's practice is going to be awesome just to feel like it's starting again. And tonight, getting to watch DJ Uiagalelei play some NFL preseason football. I mean, can't beat that. That's quite the way to kick off football season. I'm pumped for it, so couldn't be more ready.
No lie, I've got some steaks dry brining in the over in the kitchen area right now, waiting to fire those onto. I'm in an apartment, so not the grill. Fire them into my stainless steel pan, literally for the Hall of Fame game, because I'm just like, it's football, and the Braves are dead. So I'm like, it's the only sport I've got right now. Give me some football. It was good to talk to Brent at Ben Arbuckle yesterday, but before we do that, John Hoover made a big announcement here on Tuesday, and we're not going to get through this podcast today. July 31st, who you said it, on August 1st, you're retiring as a full-time sports writer. You're not going anywhere. You'll still be around, but what better way to celebrate your last day full-time than making you sit down and podcast with us?
I know you guys are too great. You're too good to me. It's funny. I was, at the press conference yesterday, and Tom Green walks up and goes, when I retire, I'm not coming into work the next day. It's like you just did. I said, good point, fair point. I'm calling it a full-time career. Like you said, I'm still going to be around, still going to be writing, still going to be, watching the press conferences and going to games if you'll have me, Ryan, from time to time. We'll see which games we pick. I'm hoping you won't let me come to the Michigan game. I'm hoping you want me at Texas, that kind of thing. But we've joked about that and talked about it. The non-jokey part is I've got Parkinson's disease. I was diagnosed in 2023, but people who know Parkinson's, the neurologists and the doctors and stuff, they say you probably had it for 10 years or more. Just as symptoms creep up on you and progress, you're like, why is my foot doing that? Why is my body acting this way? Why is my brain forgetting certain things? Why is my hand tremoring like that? All of a sudden you get a diagnosis of Parkinson's and you're like, so that's what's been going on. Why am I waking up in the middle of the night fighting my pillow, punching my pillow and cussing at it in the middle of the night? That's part of the ongoing joys of the many symptoms that is Parkinson's disease. So I'm going to try and be as active as I can. I'm going to try and be active maybe in the Parkinson's community where I can be an advocate, raising awareness. We'll see where that leads me. But, I just got to say this. You guys wrote that column and I posted it for most of the past 4 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 days. I have been responding to phone calls, voicemails, text messages, tweets, DMs, IMs, PMs, Facebooks. Thousands of people have reached out, and I am emotionally unprepared for that. I was absolutely overwhelmed by the outreach and the outpouring of support. So all of y'all who watch this podcast, listen to this podcast, who responded or want to respond or hit me up on YouTube or whatever, holy cow, I'm so appreciative of you guys. So, and you two fellas for holding this thing together while I've been going through this for, the last 12 months or so. She's coming up on 2 years almost. I appreciate you guys and everybody, Ryan, Randall, Carson, all you guys who have helped keep this thing together while I've been kind of going through this and fighting it. Love you guys and I appreciate you.
Well, here's the thing: you're not going to get out of this without covering every OU Texas that you'll enjoy and hiccup. There will be some games on the calendar, and like if you read it, if you didn't read it, it was wonderfully written. Obviously, it's the Hoov standard and all that, and you'll know that He's still be chipping in columns, things like that. He'll be on this podcast as long as he wants to be on this podcast. He'll still be out and around, and when I see a big game, I'll be like, hey, it'd be great having you there. It certainly makes it easier for a big time college football game. Who's going to be our version of game day here at Sooners on SI? You know that the everybody's in town if we're bringing Hoov into the press box, and anyone that wants to reach out, not just to Hoov, but us, anything that can help raise awareness and push the cause of PD, that's going to be something that is with Sooners on SI for a very long time. So if you've got any of that, hit us up at Johnny Hoover, at _ Ryan Chapman, at Carson D Field. Anything we can do, any way we can assist, we'll be there. And we'll be there with you, Hoov. All I ask in return is I know that you talked about the drum therapy when you join the band that
Yep.
whatever band that you're going to organize and get together, just let me know when the first gig is so we could be out there losing our minds while you Dave Grohl this bad boy up.
I am in the garage 2 hours probably per night, and I can't play them during the day because it's too hot in the garage. So wait till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I'm out there 2 hours to 3 hours every night, sweating it up, learning how to play the drums, working on my rudiments and all that stuff. It is a blast, fellas. I'm not kidding. I've wanted a drum kit like all my life, but I live in a quiet neighborhood, so I haven't ever bought one. I bought an e-kit, and I have been out there for most of the last 6 weeks, hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours a night, drumming my little heart out. And my buddy who has a garage band in North Pole, Alaska, where I grew up, he said their drummer recently quit. I said, I'm on my way.
Make that thing happen. You got to make it a thing, whether it's Zoom or whatever. We'll make that.
I need a couple more years to be able to, get proficient, but I'm on my way. Might stop in Canada and play a couple of gigs.
So say hello to our friends, the Meese out there. And I guess it's not really a joke, but an inside gag here. If he's going through Canada, I guess I'll watch the police blotters because that's just what we do here at Sooners on SI. At least.
Hey, by the way, real quick, I want to throw this out there. You mentioned the Texas game. Hopefully. What did I say? 2004 was my first Texas game. So that would be 22. This would be 22 years in a row, I think. I'm currently on a streak, and I think it's about 260 games in a row. Does that sound right?
Yeah, when we were checking in, because you had tallied it up at the end of the 23 season, I think, and that would be about right.
Yeah, so 2 more seasons, 24 and 25 coming up. So 24. Yeah, that's about right. About 250 games, somewhere around there. I'll add it all up and maybe write something about it, but hate to see that streak end. Consecutive games. I'm a guy that believes in streaks, so yeah, time has come, kind of thing.
August 30th, Toe will meet Leather in Norman. That's OU at Illinois State. We talked to the whole squad on July 30th, 1 month before, on the verge of opening up fall camp. Oh, by the way, we did this last time, didn't we? When you were tallying up your Texas streak, your start of your OU Texas streak was my first time attending the OU Texas game, and we have done that streak together outside of the COVID game, which I don't count because I was back in studio working the OU Texas game, making sure it was on air. So I worked that game, but I worked it from studios. Anyway, weird how that works out. All right, let's dive in. Media Day, Brent Venables, Ben Arbuckle, 7 Sooners took the stage. Let's start with Brent Venables. The biggest thing, if we're just talking like newsy stuff, Eli Bowen out for the start of fall camp. We're going to hit that a lot later in the show when we talk about our fall camp defensive preview. Obviously, no Eli Bowen to start will play a big role in that. But taking a step back from that, Hoov, you got the first question to Brent Venables. You asked him about the ongoing evaluation that he does at the end of every season. That's not just because they sucked last year, but evaluation matters more when you stink. What'd you kind of take away? I know you wrote the column from Brent Venables, and not just that, but his whole what I would consider to be a chippy media session with Brent Venables.
I thought, chippy probably is too strong.
Yeah.
I do think that he was he had a little bit of an edge to him yesterday. He was in kind of a dour mood. I'm not going to say foul or sour or anything, but just kind of a dour, straight up, not jokey too much mood. And I don't know why that is, other than he's been, as he said, reading our stuff and watching our podcasts and listening in the off season, and he's kind of fed up with it all. Hey, Brent, if you're watching, if you're listening, that's the territory that comes with going 6-7, 2 out of your first 3 years. It just is. I mean, if you had gone 10-2, nobody would be saying any of this stuff. And I say you, it's the team, the program, obviously. But so many injuries last year. Let's be honest. And he said so in his 30 years as a college football coach, he's never had a team endure that kind of injuries. I've been covering college football for 30 years, and high school football beyond that for going on. Well, this is year 41 coming up, so I've never seen injuries like that. I've never seen injuries like we saw last year. So he's got a right, to be a little edgy right now at this time of the year. I did think it was interesting that when he was asked how many fits the guys Mateer and Ott are going to cause in the SEC, he said, "Well, I don't know about fits, but there's people in this room," and he started staring at like everybody in the front row. There's people in this room who expressed doubts that they could do it because it's not Wyoming and it's not Oregon State or whoever, San Jose State guys, what those guys played against last year, as well as what Jaden Ott played in the ACC. But yeah, he had a little bit of an edge to him. He did say when I said, Brent, you evaluate yourself going back, looking back on 22, you did it in 23. You look back again on 24. How do you evaluate yourself? Where do you want to improve? What areas do you want to improve as a head coach? And he quickly said, I want to get better at everything. He said, I think I would say that if we had gone 16-0, there's always room to grow. There's always room to improve. 100% correct. But he quickly got into this is a new season and you grow from everything, the good and the bad. So he's optimistic. As I've said several times, he's relentlessly optimistic about how good this team can be. And he used the words, you guys, their program's in better shape right now. The roster, I should say, is in better shape right now than it was last year. So he's very optimistic.
The last time I can remember an injury crisis like last year's in Norman was probably 2009.
Yep.
It felt like that started immediately with the Jermaine Gresham stuff, and then it was just a constant thing. Well, the thing with that is, though, Bob Stoops had built up 1999 through 2008 of credibility, and Brent just hasn't had any. Obviously, not a national championship, but even just the run of conference title games, all that stuff. So
that 09 team might have been Bob Stoops' best team with that defense that Brent put together, and all the Heisman Trophy winner coming back. 2 first-round picks up front with Gresham and Trent Williams. That might have been his best team ever. And half of those guys didn't even finish the season. Unbelievable.
It was insane. Carson, what'd you make of Venables? We saw a very different Brent Venables at SEC Media Day. He was a little bit more relaxed, but Carson, I don't know if Brent Venables is a head coach built for talking seasons as much as one that feels way more at home on the practice field, which I don't know if anyone saw the videos that Oklahoma was putting out early. Brent Venables' big smile looked like a kid on Christmas morning today.
Well, it's a little, as you guys know, this is my first full year on the beat. I wasn't here last year for any of the preseason media stuff, so it's hard for me to compare mood last year versus this year, but I'm with you guys. There was definitely a little bit of edge to him yesterday. Not really sure what the right word to describe his mood was, but there was definitely a little bit of tension, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world. I feel like you need a little bit of that coming off 2 losing seasons in 3 years. You don't want to be all smiles, all giggles when you necessarily haven't lived up to the hype. So I think it's good that there was a little bit of a contrast to what we saw at SEC Media Day. Obviously, that atmosphere is a lot different than being in the building, taking questions from almost entirely home area reporters. So it is a much different vibe. So maybe that's the reason for the contrast. But I think overall, I think that mood should just kind of be encouraging, just that he really is coming into this with some seriousness, no formalities, just we need to win games. There's not a whole lot to that besides that. But I thought there were some very valid questions asked to Brent Venables about how do these two former Pac-12 players, how do they work out in the SEC? Hoov's question about just what Venables accomplished last year as a coach. That was a good question and a good answer too. Just kind of there are always things that you can improve even if they did have an undefeated season. So there are a lot of questions, and I think Venables has the right approach as far as being a little bit on edge yesterday.
We broke down the offense last week in the big questions going into camp, but Understandably, a lot of our conversation centered around the offensive line. I think that was reflected in the fact that both Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle got, I think, two questions each about the offensive line, various things like that. And I thought it was notable just what Brent was talking about um, having a lot more faith and a lot more depth in this group because of the injuries last year. It forced guys like a Logan Howell and a Hito Zaida to maybe play ahead of schedule, which meant that, last year we had a bunch of questions about that group when healthy anyway, because they were having to replace a bunch of guys. This year, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, Troy Everett at centers played a ton of games at Oklahoma now. Fetchy Weewu started a whole season last year at guard at Oklahoma. Sexton, Howland, Ozida, all those guys have now Oklahoma starting experience to go with the fact that you bring in Derek Simmons, who started 27 games in his career between Abilene Christian and Western Carolina. You've got Jake Mikla and Luke Bakalenko, the two Stanford transfers who played a great deal of ball at Stanford. So just the facts of that are Brent Venables, I think, feels a bit more comfortable knowing that if you have inexperienced players playing this year, it should be because Michael Fasusi has earned that, or Eddie Pierre-Louis has earned that, which I think is a good spot to be in. And then on top of that, you get Brent Venables talked about it, and we can get into now what Ben Arbuckle had to say. Ben Arbuckle a couple of times noted that like the offensive line was the group that has maybe spent the most time of any position group up at the facility, watching film, breaking all that down. And I thought that with Ben Arbuckle, it's only the second time we've gotten to speak to him in the give and take. He's done a podcast or two. He's done a coach's luncheon or two, stuff like that. But Ben Arbuckle was a guy that I thought was still adjusting to be behind that podium with the big OU on it a little bit from that side of things. But once he started talking about his guys who Ben Arbuckle settled in, and you can see why he's been pretty dynamic and has had a meteoric rise through when you just kind of talk to him and he sounds a lot like a more veteran offensive coordinator, from West Texas that we've seen speak behind an OU podium before. There were a couple of times that I was just like that. His manner, he looks like Lincoln Riley up there, which has been kind of it was a very, very weird thing
Yep.
throughout the press conference yesterday. It was like he sounds like Lincoln, he looks like Lincoln, and he uses some of the sayings picked up around the Texas Tech offices that like it was a little bizarre, frankly.
It was. He looks like when Lincoln came in 2015, everybody was kind of immediately blown away by how polished he is, with the media and his delivery and what he wants to say and what he wants to express. Very much the same thing. And we've talked to Ben a couple times before, but so no surprise for us yesterday. But it was impressive. He stands up there and he looks like a head coach, guys. He looks and talks and acts and interacts like a head coach. It's very impressive to watch him just speak to the media.
It was something too that I asked Ben Arbuckle just about Carson when you or I were down in Atlanta. One of the things that stuck out to me is John Mateer is kind of buried deep into the John Mateer interview. But if you missed it, just hit up Hoov's YouTube page, John Hoover Media, or head to the website oklahomasooners.si.com. You have to scroll a little bit, but his breakout session, John Mateer is just very comfortable, candidly talking about like, yeah, we've been adding a bunch of stuff, and that was one of the strengths of being ahead of schedule on the spring install was being able to innovate as opposed to just catching everybody back up. And I was kind of curious, what would you see from a Ben Arbuckle? Would he be, hey, coming from Western Kentucky and then Washington State, is he overwhelmed a little bit by the pressure at Oklahoma and just trying to work so hard to get everyone on the same page of what he has done? Or is he going to be able to just be a comfortable, confident coach and start putting in wrinkles and things like that, knowing that people are going to have studied all this Washington State stuff to a different degree in the SEC? And he talked about the process of always needing to evolve, Carson. And I think that he's the kind of guy that I have full faith, whatever the skill group ends up being, Mateer, Jaden Ott, if you get a healthy Deion Burks and Satania, all that stuff. He just strikes me as the offensive coordinator. And I know that it's only been 1 year since Oklahoma's had, decent offenses, good offenses, all that. But creativity is back on the menu in Norman. And I have full faith that he'll be able to quickly analyze, hey, here's the strengths of my unit. How do I get Taylor Tatum the ball in the flat as opposed to leaving him out to dry in pass pro? How do I get Deion Burks the ball downfield, something we saw 0 times last year?
Yeah, I just mentioned a minute ago that I think it's good that Venables had a little edge I think it's a good thing that Arbuckle looked so comfortable and confident yesterday up at the podium. Obviously, being a 29-year-old coach, first year at OU, you don't want somebody that's already that tense. He seems like he's loving it already. That's big. Doesn't seem to be too overwhelmed by this new conference, arguably the best defensive conference in college football. So that I think that's big. And I'm with you. I think the creativity is something that really won't stop. Will everything work? No. It's the SEC. Teams are going to blow up plays from time to time. But I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, especially with John Mateer's arm strength and running ability. They're going to be able to throw it deep this year. We saw that, I guess, once in the bowl game last year. I know there was a big pass from Michael Hawkins in the Auburn game, but we did not see a whole lot of downfield passing last year. I think that's going to change a lot with Ben Arbuckle, especially with some of the new weapons and speed. I mean, Isaiah Satania, everything I've heard about him, one of the fastest guys in the SEC coming into the year, and a lot of other transfer receivers that should be big pieces, especially if Giovanni Gibson gets healthy. So, with so much new talent, the line, like you said in the intro to this question, just kind of getting more continuity, new players, some good newcomers, has a lot of potential, and all these units combined with Arbuckle's knowledge, I feel like it could really gel and be more creative and less vanilla than it was last year.
John, what you make of obviously everyone's going to get asked about Michael Fasusi. I think it was George that asked Ben just about Fasusi and what he needs to do to put himself in a position to actually earn playing time. What'd you kind of make of that answer from Ben Arbuckle?
I think I thought it came out two ways. I thought it came out like he's talented enough, he's physical enough to be able to maybe be the best, certainly prospect, long-term NFL prospect. Troy Everett called him a possible three and done kind of guy, 3 years and off to the NFL. Everybody thinks that highly of him, but I think he couched it just enough to say he's 18 years old. He's a college freshman. He's playing in the SEC. Let's tap the brakes just a little bit. Let's let him come along at his own pace. And hey, he's got Bill Bedenbaugh in his corner, right? Best offensive line coach in the country. I think we're all on that page. He's also got Kevin Wilson in his corner, right? Teaching him some stuff now. Previously, one of the best offensive line coaches in the country, and on offensive, I wanted to call him an offensive savant, but that kind of connotates a little bit of a precocious, whiz kid kind of thing. He's not a savant. I called him a sage. He's been around so long, he knows everything, Kevin Wilson. And so having those guys in Fasusi's corner, man, jeez, look for good things from that kid and look for them. It would not surprise me to see him do what Caden Green did a couple of years ago, come out at midseason and lock down that spot.
It's interesting. Caden Green came on a little bit due to injury, and then it was him and Troy Everett. Troy Everett trying to play guard instead of center, all that stuff. I am curious. This is a thought I've been having, right? Is that with Bill Bedenbaugh, we just always in our heads default to a couple of things. First off, he's gonna tinker. He's not afraid to mix and match and find the first five. And usually the unofficial line of demarcation for Bedenbaugh is walking out of the Cotton Bowl. We usually have a decent idea of what the five he's going to roll with the rest of the way. We also know he is slow to trust the young guys, which is fine. It's worked out really well for him. But if you look at the last couple of years, 2 years ago, it was Caden Green, a true freshman. Now, Caden Green was playing between Walter Rouse and Rame. So it was a lot of experience on both sides of Caden Green. So I think that maybe made things a little bit easier for Bill Bedenbaugh. And then last year, by the end of the year, he had to throw a couple of redshirt freshmen in Howland and Heath Ozida at left guard and left tackle. So Bedenbaugh knows what it's like to experience an entirely young left half of an offensive line going into or battling through an SEC schedule. So whether that means whoever would be beside a Michael Pasusi or stuff like that, I just do wonder, does that make it a little bit easier for Bill Bedenbaugh to pull the trigger on Michael Fasusi if he's close? And all that's going to be if he is close to Jacob Sexton and Logan Howland throughout camp, a battle that we'll obviously be asked about every time we talk to one of the big hefties. Jacob Sexton, who, by the way, yesterday he's one of the guys we talked to, firmly said, I did play a lot of positions. It was kind of tough. I am most comfortable at tackles. So I think that if I were getting in the lab, guys, and cooking up like what is Ryan's dream offensive line for this Oklahoma team, it would probably be, frankly, like Fasusi at left tackle, and an experienced Sexton at left guard. I don't know though if Sexton he'll play where he's asked to play, but I don't know if he would love that, just kind of based off of what he was talking about yesterday. We talked to Sexton as well as 6 of his teammates, and let's get to Jaden Ott here in a second. That's someone that we got to talk to for the first time. But if you missed any of Brent Venables, any of Ben Arbuckle, 2 easy ways to grab it. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. If you just scroll, we have those stories with the video for Arbuckle and Brent Venables. We also have one that's just Oklahoma Players Media Day. If you open that up, it's got not just Venables, not just Arbuckle, but everybody's video all in one place. It's an easy catch-all, one-stop shop if you want to listen to any of that. But we talked to Troy Everett, Sexton, Jaden Ott, Dominic Williams, Grayson Halton, Kobe McKenzie, and Taylor Wine, 7 guys yesterday. Hoov, you were posted up with the former Cal running back. You got the Marshawn Lynch advice passed down from Jaden Ott to you. What'd you make of Oklahoma's shiny new explosive member of the backfield?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll close the book on the offensive line and transition into Ott with the same analogy here. Troy Everett, who I was also posted up with, the former App State center, he threw that out there. He talked about, it was very interesting, about the competition that's been going on the offensive line, right? Everybody's competing for a job. Every spot is open. Everybody, but he's talking about Fabechi, Weewoo, and him every day after workouts or whatever. They get on this sled and they have a race and they see who can push the sled the farthest. And he says, Fabechi's just an animal. He's a beast. He never gets tired. And then he said, Michael Fasusi comes up and says, let's race. He's like, excuse me? He's like, let's race. I want to race you. He wants to race the offensive lineman. Fasusi does. And he says, of course he beats me. He's a freak. He's an athletic freak. But he said, but I love that kind of competition. Now, in Ott's direction, speaking of competition, he has a competition. I don't know how frequently, but occasionally he has a competition with none other than John Mateer. Their competition is to see how long it, and I think they can do it like over Zoom calls or FaceTimes or whatever. They see who can get 6,000 jump ropes first. And Ott said he's hitting under 6 minutes. And so we're like, okay, stop. So what's Mateer getting? He goes, I'm not going to speak for him, but it ain't under 6 minutes. So the point being, it seems like at every position, at every, even cross positions in this case, guys have been getting to know each other. You know, all the newcomers, all the transfers, all the freshmen, they're getting to know each other. They're developing a chemistry. They're developing a bond. And sometimes that stuff's hard to come by, but it seems like it's happening at an early stage with this group. So that's something that Ben Arbuckle can be, I think, encouraged about. Now, let's talk about Ott. I'll tell you what, we've seen his highlights. We've seen him run the football, catch the football. He's really talented. He's bigger, stronger, and faster than he was when he was at Cal. He's more powerful, more explosive. Like, how the heck did that happen? Well, thank you, Jerry Schmidt, first of all. He talked about Schmitty being a freak in the offseason. He said he's hilarious. And he said day one when he walked out there, Schmitty walked up to him and said, I need you to be more of a vocal leader out here. And he goes, he's looking around. He's like, it's day one. Can I, he's thinking to himself, can I get comfortable first? No, this is going to be you're one of the players. This is your team. You're a senior running back. You're coming in here with all these accolades. You need to step up and take kind of control of this thing. When he was talking about Jaden Ott, we have to talk about the ankle injury. He said it's good to go. He said it's very good, actually. He also said that it was mishandled last year at Cal. And if you look at some of his game by game, which I did earlier in the summer, look at his game by game results. You'll see stuff like 10 carries for 11 yards, 7 carries for 12 yards, 15 carries for 4 yards. And you're like, what the heck? Why would you, if your ankle hurts that bad that you can't go, why would you give him 15 carries? Why would you give him 11 carries, 10 carries? And he said there was they kind of misdiagnosed it a little bit, grade 2 or 3 high ankle sprain, very serious, very painful. He said it was misdiagnosed a little bit, and there was some miscommunication about when he was going to be ready, and they kept putting him back out there. He said, ultimately, I wish I'd have had a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, that I could have just sat out and got that thing healthy. And it made me immediately think, I know some of you old timers out there remember this, made me immediately think of Adrian Peterson's sophomore year when Rhett Bomar was the quarterback and they started 2-3 and got beat bad at UCLA. Adrian sprained his ankle and it took him about a month and a half to get fully healthy again. And when he did, of course, he was fantastic. That was his sophomore year. Finished with just over 1,000 yards rushing, but he missed like half the season because of that stupid ankle injury that just wouldn't get healthy. They finally sat him out a couple games, or one full game and parts of two others, and he got healthy enough to come back, and that's exactly what Jaden Ott needed last year.
Yeah, I thought that Ott was as diplomatic as you can be while we're in the era of media training, and this was as close as you get to a guy just fully throwing a medical staff under the bus because it you could tell he was still pretty annoyed based off of
Yeah.
everything that went down there. And that's what I mean. We've said it to different degrees of if you are just looking at his stuff last year going, I don't understand the hubbub, then you're missing the point because he was hurt last year. Does that mean that he'll be everything of a couple of years ago? Well, that's the challenge to him, and that's kind of the hope with him playing closer to. If you listen to Gabe and Teddy on the Oklahoma Breakdown talk about him being closer to 215, 220, that would be the goal, that he can bring that explosion while also bringing a little bit of thud behind him as he's taking on the SEC. One more note on Troy Everett, because I love Troy Everett. He's my kind of absolute psycho.
Yeah.
If you've not heard the story that Troy Everett will like finish practice and then go brew himself a nice cup of coffee and then just sit back at his locker chilling. He did the whole thing with a cup of coffee. Troy Everett claims that this is a Troy Everett claim yesterday, that he is beating R. Mason Thomas heads up in sprints because he was talking about the offensive line, some of the metrics and stuff. And if you've read Hoov's story on Britt Venables talking about the offense improving, they're talking about weight gain, muscle, sprint speed, all that. Troy Everett is very, very proud of some of the sprint times that Oklahoma's offensive line has put up there. So I just hand up. I love talking to Troy Everett. We were having a ton of fun with his DX chop at the punt, pass, and kick at the Crimson Combine. Troy Everett and I were so wishing the best for him and his just casually finishing practice and needing cups of coffee. I was like, yeah, that's my kind of psycho.
I was going to say, if he's finishing each practice with a cup of coffee and then he's outrunning R. Mason Thomas, do we need to look and see what's in that coffee?
Well, maybe. As a tennis fan, I'm gun shy on all the what's in this and that because it's been an absolute tire fire for 18 months on the tennis front. But Carson, who all did you?
Hey, I got one more. I got one more note for you on Ott. You'll love this. Before we move on, somebody asked him, "What's the biggest difference?" OU Cal, right? He stopped and he paused and he looked around. He smiled and he said, "Biggest difference, huh? I don't know how to put it nicely." And he stopped right there and was like, "What?" And he goes, "Biggest difference." And he said, "These guys care." And then he goes, he said, "I'm not saying that my former teammates at Cal didn't care." He said, "But there's levels. And it shows in the way that guys treat their craft and how often they're taking care of things outside of the facility in order to be good within it." What a mature answer. What an absolutely, and that illustrates why Cal, has what it has for college football history, and Oklahoma has what it has. This is a next level place where guys take care of their business on the field, in the classroom, in the locker room, in the athletic training room, in the dining room, and off the field when they're away from the field. This is a place that's truly special for college football. Not everybody treats it the same as what we're exposed to on a daily basis.
It's funny that he had said that because while that was going on, I was talking with Dominic Williams, Oklahoma's defensive tackle, who played high school ball in California, went to TCU, and one of the things he was talking about was that he's never been more prepared, like that you are prepared to be a professional at Oklahoma, what it means off the field, fan base, media attention, all that stuff. And I just thought it was funny that he was talking about part of his family is his brother moving, is that his brother's now right around the corner from him, a high school kid, and Dom was like, "Yeah, I wouldn't get the respect being a D lineman in California. I'd have to come down south and go to camps and prove it against these guys. Come on down, prove it, that kind of thing." It just felt like it kind of mirrored each other, and that's a guy that played at TCU. Carson, you know this being around Texas A&M for as long as your family has all that stuff. When you step in and it's the big boys and everything that happens in the SEC, it's a bit different around these parts.
Yeah, and I can kind of relate to what Jaden's saying too, because obviously I went to undergrad at Arizona State and I actually covered an ASU at Cal game, and I was super hyped to see that atmosphere. I was like, okay, Pac-12 program, I'm sure this is awesome. That was the most disappointing atmosphere I've ever been to, and I've also been to the Coliseum and the Rose Bowl for regular season games too, and those are not great, as most college football fans know. But yeah, there's just not a whole lot of buy into the football program from the students, from what Ott's saying, the players and coaches too right now. So it's really cool to hear his perspective about how professional this program is, how seriously they're taking year two in the SEC, because obviously one of the most historic programs in the nation. Like Hoov said, you get there for a reason by having a disciplined approach, doing all of these little things right. And it's really cool that even in such a short time, Ott's already picked up on that.
Also, Ryan, Jaden Ott, I got him to say he was a Thunder fan yesterday. I thought he'd be coming in here going, no, 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 Lakers all the way, man. Like he's like, I didn't really like basketball, but hey, we got the NBA champs here in Oklahoma City. I was like, everybody loves you so much. You know, when you say I'm a Thunder fan and you're from Southern California, he's from Los Angeles. Okay, he's from Chino, which is just east of LA, little suburb. And another thing that was hilarious was he said it's a little different here. I'm from the city. He said y'all got bugs, a lot of bugs. He said he had a hornet's nest by his garage, and he's like, he said I almost got a broom and hit it down, but this is his quote: a couple people on Instagram said it would be a bad idea.
He said very close to John Mateer. I think that John Mateer needs to do a little bit of the this is how we deal with the hornet's nest. This is how we deal with this. Some quick learning out there. Jay Knott, smart man with the media. He knows how to get everybody on his side. There were six other guys out there though. We kind of chopped them up. Who was on Jay Knott duty? Carson, who'd you talk to? What kind of stood out from the players that you were bouncing around with yesterday?
Yeah, so I was with Jacob Sexton, obviously a tackle who primarily played guard last year, Taylor Wine, the defensive end, and then linebacker Kobe McKenzie. And all of those guys had very interesting things to say. Starting with Sexton, we kind of touched on the offensive line a minute ago, but something I thought was cool he said is that having to be in so many weird positions last year, having to get in uncomfortable places made him, and he said his teammates a lot better. So it's one way to kind of look at what was a really bad season for the offensive line and see some positives, see that it's kind of carrying into this season, obviously with newcomers, talented freshmen. Sexton feels really good about how a not so great year is actually helping them be a pretty cohesive unit this year. So that was the big takeaway I got from him. From Taylor Wine, he is someone that his name keeps coming up. He was asked about, I mean, someone asked about him to Venables yesterday. His name was brought up at Media Days a handful of time in Atlanta. And people are expecting really big things. And he credited Ethan Downs, R. Mason Thomas, some of the other defensive ends for his development. And definitely not getting cocky with the hype, but he believes in himself. He definitely believes he can be this big defensive lineman. Obviously, a very stacked defensive line on the end position with R. Mason Thomas, Marvin Jones Jr., PJ Adebawore. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But very stacked room, and Wine thinks he could be a big part of that. And then Kobe McKenzie, obviously no Danny Stutzman, bigger role for McKenzie this year, and he thinks that his connection with Kip Lewis is great. He told me that they have really bonded together on the field, obviously, but off of it too, playing golf together quite a bit. And he thinks that linebacker is going to be a strength of, I forget the word he used. I think he just said complete. I think it was complete is the word he used for the defense from the line, the secondary linebackers. He feels really good about where they're at.
Yeah, we'll be talking to Kobe weekly. He'll take over the Stutzman Spotlight that Eddie and I used to do on Mondays over there on the franchise. So if you ever want to hear from Kobe, all that stuff, I know that the NIL interview thing that everybody has one, everybody does it, but Kobe will be the guy for us. So if you're ever interested in that, check in with us. That'll be Mondays at 9 a.m. On the radio side of life. And Taylor Wine, he's kind of been like the name of the offseason to a certain extent for the Oklahoma defense. And he's asked about in the spring, like you said. I was asking Dominic Williams because I was over with him and Grayson Halton. What is it about him? And Dominic just kind of smiled. He's like, this is not the best answer, but there's just something about a switch has flipped for him. I think that Dominic is kind of talking about he's always put in the work, but it sounds like the light bulb has come on. And the thing that Dom was also talking about is that the muscle that he's put on at points, Wine looked on the field more like he said like a converted tight end type thing. Now when he steps in, he can point to it. He's like, yeah, that guy looks like a defensive end. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Was just talking to Dom and Grayson Holton just about how they feel like the next step for that interior group is to not just be Grayson Holton can kind of push the pocket from the inside. Dom was talking about how he wants to be known as more than just the run stopper. And while he'd like the sacks, as long as the opposing offense feels him, that kind of thing, and it's similar with Jaden Jackson, then they'll be there. And also, Dominic Williams and Grayson Holton both talked about David Stone. And since he entered the portal and then decided to stay, they said they've seen a whole new intensity from him as far as holding people accountable, him not missing a workout, not missing a lift, not missing anything. So we'll see what that translates to because there is a spot for David Stones to step in that rotation along the interior of the defensive line in a big way with Dejon Terry now off and out and graduating out and all that stuff. So boys, let's move into our defensive preview as they hit camp today, some of the position battles, and we're going to start at corner because Eli Bowen, like Brent Venables said, out, will not start camp as part of that lingering ankle injury, lower leg injury that he had sustained early in spring football, and then he was out on crutches and all that stuff. So Brent Venables guys talked about trusting the youth and things like that at corner. John, they're going to be cautious with Gentry Williams. Duh. I think everyone knows the reason for that. Look at his injury history. You're just trying to get Gentry to the season healthy, which is going to provide a really, really big opportunity. Jacoby Johnson, someone that won snaps despite splitting time at wide receiver and corner a year ago, but Devon Jordan, Newcomb is a guy that has been brought up a lot, and then Cortland Guillory is kind of the freshman corner that has made waves. It sounds like, John, they're going to have to trust the youth, and these guys are going to have every opportunity to state their case as to why we should be in that rotation with Gentry and with Eli Bowen when everybody's healthy.
Yeah, if Eli Bowen is able to get back, he'll take over the starting job. If Gentry Williams is able to stay healthy, he'll be a starting corner. Those are two guys who have all SEC talent, and so I think they're set in terms of, they look at their roster, they look at their two deep and say, this is who we want there. But you're right, man, behind those guys, the competition is going to be absolutely fierce. And Jacoby's got, like you said, Jacoby's got some experience there. It's not all good experience, but here's the deal. Bad experiences help you get better way more than the good experiences do. And he had some bad experiences last year, including the meltdown in the last few minutes at Mizzou. Nobody wants that on their resume, but as a dedicated and resilient young athlete, you would hope that takes him to another level, motivates him to get his game to another level. Put aside the wide receiver stuff, put aside the basketball stuff. He's such a good athlete. He can do literally anything he wants almost on an athletic court or field. But I think the stuff at Mizzou last year and the way the season ended for him, I think he got the start, if I'm not mistaken, against Navy. I think that motivated him and gave him more of a singular focus. So it would not surprise me at all to see him kind of emerge from that group of young guys, young inexperienced guys, as the kind of default, either the third guy, the backup starter kind of guy, in case somebody gets dinged, you're the first one off the bench, or if somebody gets hurt, then you're in that spot. That would not surprise me at all. It also would not surprise me if you've been reading our copy all summer. You know that when Brent Venables said, yes, I think Kendall Dolby could absolutely move to corner and help out at corner. He's a corner. That's no surprise whatsoever. We wrote about that, I think, a couple of weeks ago, about how he's skill-wise junior college All-American at cornerback. Okay, most of his snaps at Northeastern A&M were as a nickel type corner, so he's got a little experience in that inside slot corner position. But the guy's got cornerback cover skills. When he signed with the Sooners out of JUCO, go back and watch his highlights. He has got elite cover skills as a corner. So that's another little bit of an X factor. If his foot, ankle, leg is healthy and he is as explosive as he was, he's able to trust it, and react on it like he should, like he wants to. I think he's absolutely in the mix, Kendall Dolby, to be a guy that could step in a pinch. He could fill in at as we know, we saw last year early in the season. We saw him fill in at nickel at Cheetah, which is a nickel basically, but just depends on what Brent wants out of that particular down, who's playing it. That Cheetah position is going to be interesting to watch, and we'll get into that eventually. But yeah, corner is a spot, like I said at the beginning, intense competition. And other than those guys I named, I don't think there's a lot of experience of guys that can know how to step up and take that position.
I think another like good sign, it would be a good sign if Kendall Dolby's over at corner would be that there's a lot of trust in Kendall Daniels and whether it's Reggie Powers or whoever at that Cheetah spot. I think that would show as well that they feel comfortable taking a guy that by the end of spring, Britt Middles had basically said that Dolby was back to where he was testing wise, but they were just being cautious with him. And if you're bouncing him over to corner, you would hope that's because you feel so good about like Kendall Daniels is doing at Cheetah that you can say, okay, it gets back to something Britt Middles preached 3 years ago, which is trying to find the best 11 and find ways to get those guys on the field. I do think, though, Carson Jacoby is really, really important in a way that we usually talk about the wide receivers. We were looking at additions in the winter portal and all that stuff. It was like Deion Burks you feel great about, Satana you feel great about, but needed a bigger bodied guy just to give you some sort of variance as far as the body types and the physicality. They got that in Javonte Gibson, Elijah Thomas, Manny Choice. You hope those guys could be that. At corner, you love Eli Bowen, you love Gentry Williams. Those guys are not soft by any means, but they are just smaller. And Jacoby is one of those guys that not just long, rangy, big, physical. We saw some of the issues early in the season, whether it be Tennessee going vertical or the pockets of success Auburn had. That was physical receivers going vertical, getting a corner on an island. I would just feel a lot better if you've got a Jacoby Johnson playing in that rotation in a big way, because that means you've got speed, physicality, length, someone that can kind of contend with that out there on the island that is corner.
Yeah, kind of going back to what Hoov said about Gentry Williams and Eli Bowen, definitely two guys that have that all SEC potential, two great players, but I'm with you. That size can be huge, just kind of fill up some more holes. And I feel like playing against some really big receivers that OU got in the portal this offseason, that's probably helped him elevate his game even more. I think this kind of goes back to versatility, but having some smaller guys, bigger guys at corner, I think that's huge. And guys that like a Kendall Dolby that can shuffle between Sheeta, cornerback, and then Kendall Daniel will shuffle between linebacker, Cheetah, wherever he needs to go. I think versatility, not only position wise, but size wise, throw different things at opposing offenses. I think that's the best thing the secondary can do.
Looking in at the front seven, we're not going to spend much time at all on the defensive tackles. That's like a good thing. It's 2 thumbs up to Grayson Halton, 2 thumbs up to Dominic Williams, 2 thumbs up to Jaden Jackson. Big things expected from David Stone to step in and be like the fourth guy in that rotation. That group should be really, really good. When you move out, we know R. Mason on one side, and Hoov, I'll ask you this because you and I have been through the entire Venables era. We're going to go through a bunch of the names. PJ, Marvin Jones Jr., Danny Okoye, all that stuff. But I do want to ask this, and this is not a issue with Taylor Wine. This is just something we've seen in other off seasons. Are we buying that Taylor Wine's going to be a legit piece of this rotation, or is this going to be a lot like Big 12 Media Day a couple of years ago when Connor Neer is brought up as a guy, and that turned out to be a push and prod toward Danny and some of those other linebackers as a way of, I'm going to talk about this guy. We need you to step up, because you're looking at PJ, and this is kind of a make or break year for PJ. You're looking at Marvin Jones Jr. You've been a part of some good defenses, but people would just be like, Jag over there to that kind of guy. Danny Okoye, a little bit different. He's a redshirt freshman. He's still learned the defense and stuff like that. Are we buying Taylor Wine? Or are we buying that Taylor Wine is just a motivational tool for PJ? Because we've seen it before.
Yeah, that's a really good observation, Ryan. The fact that you've got motivational tactics at play on the part of the coaching staff. to try to get more out of other guys. You mention guys that might be behind him on the depth chart. You say, oh yeah, this guy's coming on fast. Look at him. Wink, wink, nod, nod, nudge, nudge. Are you going to get to work at some point this preseason? We expect more out of you. Not that those guys aren't getting done, and it may be genuine. Yes, it may be absolutely 1,000,000% genuine because his teammates are saying a lot of the same things. If you talk to the players about Taylor Wine, he's getting a lot of run from his teammates too. So that's huge. That's big for him. And it would not be a shock to anybody to see somebody like that. Even, Taylor Wine, local kid, getting it done, making those moves. Oh no, wait, am I thinking of Taylor Heim when I said local kid?
Heim, local.
Heim, Wine is from Nashville or Brentwood, yeah, Tennessee.
Ryan was born in Edmond, though.
That's right. That's right. That's what another thing that's confusing me. They got the same name going, and geez, so get it together, Hoover. But no,
somebody's gonna change their name. I don't mean to be this way. Someone's got to become like
I know.
PH. Somebody's got to
T-Dub. Let's call Wine T-Dub from now on. But Taylor, yeah, the fact that he's from Edmond, I mean, that's not fair. We're supposed to keep all these things straight. Come on. It's like Jackson Arnold and Arnold Jackson. Wait, what's this kid's name?
Before you know it, Barry Trammell will be calling it Taylor Wine, Santa Clara, and Taylor Heim, Arkansas.
Yeah, something like that. That's right. The J-Dub experience for the Thunder fans. But no, I think you're right about Danny Okoye. Holy cow, pound for pound, best athlete on the team. Brent has said it twice in the past 10 days or whatever. That's got to be huge. But I think that you take it for face value because it comes from, like I said, not just Todd Bates, not just Brent Venables, but the coach, the players have also brought him up. But that is a really good observation that could be a motivational thing to get more out of your you two former 5-star defensive ends, edge rushers, right? Those guys, Marvin Jones and PJ, if they hit their 5-star, expectations, if they live up to their billing, Oklahoma's defensive ends are going to be absolute assassins this year. So, yeah, I could see where coaches would want to use that as a motivational tactic.
Carson, you wrote about Marvin Jones Jr. Were you talking with Kobe? Because it seems like the guys inside the locker room are pretty excited about what Marvin, the other former 5-star on this defense, right, has kind of brought so far.
Yeah, I think they like the fact that he is someone that was once a top 15 recruit in the nation, but he doesn't bring that ego into the building when he shows up for practice every day in Norman. That said, he does have a championship ring, and that is something new. But yeah, it's not like a bragging thing, but it's something where according to Kobe McKenzie, a lot of players have asked him, how did you guys do that? How were you guys so good at Georgia in 2022 when you guys won the national title? And according to McKenzie, he's given a lot of good tips about what those Georgia defenses did, why they were so efficient. I think he played 13 games as a true freshman, wasn't a starter for Georgia that year, but still had quarterback hurries in both of the Bulldogs' playoff wins. So, I mean, he played a role. He was definitely in it, even if he wasn't a starter on that defense. And you look at his production, and it hasn't been what people expected when he came out of high school. Like I said, former top 15 recruit. He was good last season for Florida State. That was a very bad team. They went 2-10 a year after going 13-1. There wasn't a whole lot that went right, but I think Florida State fans kind of thought that Jones would be a little bit better in his only year there. He wasn't great. Finished the year with, I think, 4 sacks, put up respectable numbers, but according to the people that I've talked to from the Florida State beat, just never really lived up to the preseason buzz that he had. But according to McKenzie, he's just come in with the right attitude, been a leader instantly, hasn't played a snap for the Sooners yet. But the people like McKenzie, they think his leadership is just going to be outstanding and continue to carry on and finally reach that 5-star potential he has.
Here's my tip real quick for trying to build a national championship football team. Have half of your guys go play for the Philadelphia Eagles when they win the Super Bowl. That's what that Georgia defense has right now. They were so freaking good. They had how many first rounders? Like 6 first rounders. It's ridiculous. So yeah, that's a good starting place.
It's we know this is listeners of this podcast know Georgia Tech broke that team. They broke the entire program, and that's what happens. You run to the buzzsaw down in Atlanta. The linebackers, again, much like the defensive tackles, not going to spend a ton of time on it, not because they don't deserve it, but Kip and Samuel Masigo were named to the Butkus Award watch list, which maybe a little bit of sticker shock on getting 2 guys onto that, and then I just by pure happenstance, I was pulling some stats, doing some stuff a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't realize that Sammy had finished fifth on the team in tackles a year ago. I remember him playing a lot. I don't remember that many tackles, but sure enough, it was there. Feel really good about Kip, and then the Kobe slash Sammy. Feel like those three guys will play a ton. Would like for some more depth to come up there, but. We'll just kind of have to see what that looks like throughout camp. I don't think we'll get that firm answer by the end of camp. I think that's just going to have to play its way out in rotations.
Here's the question that I have. We've been operating since Danny Stutzman went to the NFL, right? We've been operating under the assumption that Kobe is the middle linebacker and Kip is going to continue to wander around the weak side and make plays. Pretty safe assumption. If Sammy Omosigho doesn't lock down the in and out backup spot, the rotation at both spots, very potential, very possible. If he doesn't do that, and if he doesn't lock down most of the snaps at Cheetah, which is also a very strong possibility, he played there almost exclusively last year, and now he's kind of back in it more. I should say in the spring he was more of an inside linebacker role. Could he win the job at middle? Could he displace Kobe?
I think that
I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think that I just think the blend of what they all do when you put, not that Kobe's not athletic. I don't want you to misunderstand, but when you put Sammy and Kip out there, you have so much sideline to sideline, so much versatility. You have to imagine that Brent Venables is up there going, well, we can flip flop where these guys are starting lining up because there is overlap there. Yeah. But I still think that Kip's gotten bigger progressively. I think there is, regardless of what else happens, going to be a big role for Kobe is concrete in the helmet. Remember, you could go all the way back. Kip is the ball magnet. Kobe's got concrete in his helmet. And Kobe is the vocal guy. That was something even at a bowl prep that Kobe is the one that is the natural leader. He's the natural talker. And I think there's going to be a role for all of that, especially because Kobe did not play poorly a year ago. There was a couple of instances where they were dropped back into pass coverage. Guess what? Everybody struggled dropping back into it. That was still something that even Danny at the end of the season was trying to help improve on when they drop into zone. So I don't see a world in which it's not going to be those three guys chopping it up, and you got Kobe
specifically and Sammy on the inside. You think those three are locked down inside? Yeah. What about the Cheetah though? Where does Sammy fit in with the Cheetah rotation?
I think that the Cheetah rotation is going to be Dolby when he's not playing corner, Kendall Daniels, and finding some Reggie Powers, and then I think from there it's going to be backfilling. I think the most interesting part of linebackers and Cheetah is not actually the frontline guys. It is backfilling who is going to be the depth because that's where you have some of the inexperience at safety. You're going to have Robert Spears Jennings. As long as Peyton Bowen's healthy, he'll be there. You'll have Boganowski, Jaden Hardy, and Reggie Powers. And it feels like what Jaden Hardy feels pretty locked on to be. His cover skills are so good. If it's not going to be a RSJ and Peyton Bowen, I think you'll see Hardy back there. I wouldn't be shocked to see Boganowski, Powers rotate between that other safety spot, Cheetah, and that's where I think that the Kendall Dolby and Kendall Daniels experience will be, because Daniels is the bigger body, kind of like Dasan McCullough a year ago, but he's way more natural of a safety than Dasan ever was. Dasan was incredible in the short yardage stuff, but that's where Oklahoma got themselves into trouble. And I think that that's going to be, again, what I'm most interested in tracking is some of the where does some of those guys that have not gotten the snaps, because that's with everyone graduate now, the depth snaps are now stepping into those starting roles. Carson, yeah. I don't know if you've got any other different names on your.
Well, Kendall Daniels, 6'5", 240. He could play safety. He could drop in coverage, I should say. They're not going to put him at safety, but he could drop into coverage and help out there. But he really came through last year as an edge rusher. I think he had 6 quarterback sacks in a very part-time role, like kind of stand him up like a Dan Cody, Bob Stoops' old spinner defensive end, maybe put him on the inside. You got your 2 big DNs coming out here, Marvin Jones on one side, R. Mason on the other, and then you stand up your Cheetah linebacker in Kendall Daniels and go get him. Kind of a go get him defense. If he does that, if he locks down the Cheetah at that, especially as an edge rusher on 3rd and long, and maybe there's an injury somewhere at corner, which we talked about, and Kendall Dolby slides out there at corner. I just think all of a sudden you're looking at Sammy Omosigho as literally your best option your best. You talk about best 11. He would be your best option potentially at Cheetah as just third linebacker. So wow, I mean, what some of the options that they've got? They got big guys to play big guy positions and small guy positions. They got small guys to play big guy positions and small guy positions. I would love to, when you say best 11, man, I would love to be able to sit on the, like a fly on the wall and look at their depth chart during the coaches' meetings and having them slide these names up above each other and stuff. That'd be so cool.
Really, what I'm most interested in, just depth wise, is where Kendall Daniels fits in, just kind of being that jack of all trades guy at Oklahoma State. He's another guy that, like Marvin Jones, was a contributor on a very bad football team last year. Oklahoma State obviously not winning a single conference game. But Daniels, I mean, he still made the most of it, was asked to do a lot for the Cowboys last year. And before that, when Oklahoma State was still one of the better programs in the Big 12, he was one of the conference's best defenders consistently. And with how much talent this defense has, I think having a guy like Kendall Daniels on the defense just adds someone that whatever injury could come up, whoever's not necessarily playing at their highest level, Daniels can fill a lot of different spots between his size, his speed, his athleticism, his experience.
Yep.
So I'm just curious to see what his most common role is.
There is one procedural thing which can get fixed easy. Veterans of the Venables era know that Deshaun White played outside linebacker until he didn't, like 3 weeks before the season started, and they reworked that around. Sammy has been working with the green dot on his helmet, the comm system, so it would be a procedural thing if there becomes a realm where Sammy gets pushed back outside, then you're going to have to pop that somewhere else because you're not going to be able to have Kobe and Sammy both with the green dot on the field at the same time with the comms type situation. So again, that's a procedural thing that the equipment crew should be able to work out like that. But that is one of the things that Sammy and Kobe have been working out a ton with as far as the comm system and all that. But this is not an issue in the NFL. If you want to get more guys on the field, you just, hey, here's your non-comms helmet. Get out there, make that thing happen. So one procedural thing there. Other than that, though, it is interesting. It's something that I think Teddy Lehman pointed out. Whatever you want to do with Kendall Dolby, because he was a transfer portal guy, but he was a JUCO guy, so that's not really the portal in the way that we know it, stuff like that. But if Dolby starts at Cheetah and Kendall Daniels is a rotational guy coming in, and somebody not named Marvin Jones wins the starting job at the other defensive end spot, 100% high school signees for Oklahoma on the defensive side of the football. So, listen, a lot of people have criticized Brent Venables for 2, 6, and 7 seasons, all that stuff. He has fixed the defense, and it's kind of remarkable that it could be one of the SEC's best defenses. It could be the best defense in the defensive line in the SEC per Cole Kublik and a bunch of guys like that with 100% uh, guys outside of Dominic Williams, who'd be your only like big time transfer portal guy if he's in that starting group. If you go Halton and Jackson, though, it could be a one JUCO and 10 Oklahoma high school or Oklahoma signees, signing class guys, which is kind of remarkable to think about that is even a possibility. And
Yeah.
it's not like a bad SEC defense.
I don't know if you've heard this, but it's a developmental game. And Brent and those coaches have developed a lot of those guys.
Where'd you pick that up? Weird. Okay.
It was in a book one time I read.
Maybe it's at the coaches' conventions. Special teams, real quick. The expectation will be Tate Sandell, the UTSA transfer, comes in and is your place kicker. He's the one that Brent Venables talked about. I've never been around an all-pro kicker, but he carries like the confidence of an all-pro kicker in Tate Sandell. I would expect Jacob Ulrich, the Kennesaw State transfer, who was here during the spring, to win that job at punter. So you're just kind of looking at punt return, kick return type situation. Sategna, I think, is going to play a big factor in that. When we talked with Peyton Bowen at the end of last year, he had talked about really wanting to be healthy and be a part of that return game as well. And he was talking about kind of knocking off rust for some of that stuff. Jaden Ott has returned before, but you guys know this. I am team. It's the DeMarco Murray rule. Get him the hell off of kick returns. That is my simply put. Is there anybody else that you guys are anyone? Devon Jordan's returned before he got onto the field late last year in
Yeah.
a couple of spot duty, but I'm kind of just expecting to be one eye on Sategna, who is pretty
Yeah.
explosive at Arkansas.
It's for my money. And if if I were investing in the NIL, right, I would literally say for my money, I would suggest Satania be the Arkansas transfer, be the kick returner and possibly the punt returner. He was electrifying 2 years ago in the SEC, electrifying on both kickoffs and punts. So he would be my guy. I would roll him out there first. As we're talking about special teams, though, we come across a new name yesterday for the kicker job. Our good buddy Parker Thune threw this out there. Young man by the name of Preston Tarpley is now one of 5 kickers competing for the starting job at OU. I'm with you. I think it's going to be Tate Sandell. He's got the most impressive resume so far. He's got apparently the biggest leg as well. But there's another one. You got Tate Sandell, Austin Welch, Liam Evans, Grayson Miller, and a young man by the name of Preston Tarpley. So
The fire, it rises. We will see there as far as that goes. If with this schedule that Oklahoma has, you're going to need a kicker. We know this. And we hope that the conversations at Oklahoma turn back to what is the kicker doing? Because that means that we're covering close games as opposed to what we got a lot of last year, which was not close games at times.
yep.
We shall see. Keep your eyes peeled. Look alive. Friday morning, tomorrow morning, Carson and I will be out there. We got a practice viewing situation. So be on the lookout for photos, video. Carson will have the video. I'll be taking some photos. I guess you won't be on the lookout for that. That'll be more for our uses. I'll have an observations story immediately after we're done looking at practice. I'm just going to be totally candid. I don't know what those observations are going to look like for day 2 practice, that kind of thing. But whatever we see, Carson and I will put our heads together and I'll get that out there. We will be out and about next week as well. I believe the tentative plan would be Monday and Wednesday. That is all subject to change, as you know. But our next big wave of interviews should probably be on Wednesday. Regardless, there's an easy way, a couple of easy things you can do. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Just bookmark that bad boy. All of our content is always 100% free. No subscriptions, no paywalls, none of that junk. Just head to Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com and you can get everything, as always, videos, stories, all the goods. Or you can go over to Hoov's YouTube page, John Hoover Media. If you're looking for all the videos, just hit the bell, subscribe, get the notifications from Hoov. That way it will just notify you whenever we upload stuff, whether it be practice video, post-practice interviews, all that fun stuff. It will be there for you over on his YouTube page, John Hoover Media. Boys, before we break for the day and for the week. Oh, and by the way, because of our interviews are scheduled for Wednesday at the time that we normally podcast. So during the season, we will be podcasting on Wednesdays. We will be doing post-game pods, but next week is going to be another Thursday pod as well, just because we'll be out there doing the interviews and all that fun stuff next Wednesday. So look for the Sooners on SI pod next Thursday. Again, we were obviously pushed back a day this week due to media day. We'll be pushed back a day next week if the schedule holds due to interview stuff. Anything I missed, gentlemen?
Don't think so.
Beautiful.
No updates on the new athletic director. So
yeah, nothing
business
there.
as usual.
I expect that to be a totally cloak and dagger operation as well, up until we get a name, probably. But we will obviously keep our ear to the ground there. Otherwise, if anything like that does drop out of the sun, though, you can follow us on X at Sooners on SI, at John E. Hoover, at _ Ryan Chapman, and at Carson D. Field. That'll do it for us this week. We'll be back, like I said, next Thursday for another edition of the Sooners on SI podcast. We will have Carson giving us the full scouting report on DJU. I'll take the hidden hooker side of things tonight at the Hall of Fame game, and then we'll be off and running as Oklahoma is in the thick of it. Fall camp is back in Oklahoma. For Hoop, for Carson, I'm Ryan. We'll talk to you guys next week.